things. There we
Let's
go.
see.
Local recording is in progress.
Huh. All right.
All
I'll
right.
have to figure that out.
Let's start again.
Yeah.
So when you implement Paddle's checkout process, there's
Hmm.
two main options. First, you can either do a product, which is like delivering a license or a piece of software or URL or something, or a subscription service. And then when you do subscription, you can you create a catalog of subscription, which each one becomes a different Paddle like service that you get the ID for, and so you can match things up and handle restrictions, limitations on your end. So that you can then set a price for each. You can either just say one price in US and then US dollar, and then auto localize that, or you can set specific prices for, like me, for instance, for Japan. I want a round number in yen, so I override the price to be something, a round number that matches kind of with the dollar. And then when you do to actually implement the checkout itself on your app, you have there's two things you have to do. First of all, there's the actual purchase, taking the card details and things, and then there's the webhook side. So you get a bunch of data back when they start subscribing, or you can choose which webhook events to change. So if a billing payment is completed, or if payments failed, or if they've changed their email address, or they've cancelled, or all of these things, or if a card subscription failed, things like that. So you can choose all of these webhooks, and so you get like a payload back. And there's a simulator, so you can simulate all of these within there. So to get to that point, you have to actually collect the payment details. So there's two options. There's either a JavaScript one which does an overlay, or there's an inline one which effectively gives you a customizable form, which is like on a separate page. So to make it just simple and less work, I'm just doing the JavaScript overlay one. So it just produces like a modal on top of your page, and it just works really easily. Getting that bit is fine. I'm just having to now deal with all of the different web things that matter, right? So a lot of them, I'm like, I don't care if they, for instance, change their address or something. That doesn't matter to me. But if they cancel subscription, that matters to me. Or even when if a payment fails, do I tell them in my UI? They'll probably get an email from Paddle anyway, but also I should probably tell them in my UI also, right? So how do I update that? So it'd be the whole model locally in your application suddenly expands a bit, because it's like, well, what different states do I need to show? I show them their last billing date and their next billing date. So if I tell them your active subscription, you'll be next charged next Tuesday, it's just another thing to take care of and to show. And so it takes a little bit getting it working, like paid, and you get the thing back and you can do something different, increase the number of users or whatever. That is easy. And then there's just all of these like extra bits, which it's kind of one of those that there's the obvious things, like you need to store a cancel URL. So if they want to cancel, they have to go to Paddle. So they give you a URL. If they click on that, they get redirected to Paddle, where they cancel their subscription, or if they need to change their billing. So they send you these URLs as part of the webhook. You've got to store those and then put those in your UI. So that's like
are those account specific or?
So those are account specific, yes. So if you're a subscriber to my thing and you want to cancel, I store the cancel URL. You click the cancel, I send you there, and they cancel on Paddle. So I guess it's to do with all of because they control the billing, and they are seller of record? I forget the actual term of it. Right.
So that's what it's called.
Yeah. So because I don't know anything about the user's details, effectively. They send me their email address as part of the payload. But apart from that, anything to do with billing, I know nothing about, apart from they paid for something. They paid this amount for a thing. So in order to complete that, like canceling or changing so if they want to upgrade or downgrade their subscription plan also, I have to do the same thing. I have to bounce them back to Paddle in order to do that, because I can't know anything about their billing, right? So there's a little bit of stuff which if you're using Stripe, I believe it's a more direct approach, where it's like, I bill you, you get this, I get this back, I do things. It's a direct kind of thing with you and the person buying the thing. Whereas Paddle, there's a little bit of this going around the houses a little
Okay.
bit, because I send them there, they change it there, I get a webhook back, and then they come
And
back
it
to
changes
me.
in their
Yeah,
system.
so
Yeah.
there's a little bit of more of a round trip involved, but it's
Huh.
straightforward enough. I mean, it's easy enough, and I think it's worth doing for this stage, just because I don't have to then worry about the whole tax thing.
How are you finding their API, their documentation?
It's fine. I mean, there's a few annoyances that you have to kind of read between the lines a little bit. And the biggest annoyance is that they're using API docs should not be a single page web app. Just make it a static HTML document that I can copy and paste from. Yeah. So you can't copy and paste from their API document, as in you can't select text. And I'm like, okay, you're giving me a webhook with documentation with keys, tokenized keywords that I'm supposed to check on, yet I can't copy and paste that keyword. And it's like, it's really annoying stuff. I just wish this is where my, get kind of annoyed with single page web apps when there really isn't any need for it. It's a HTML document. It's a text page.
It's documentation. It should be just plain HTML.
Yeah. So there's little frustrations like that, and it does feel like there's certain areas where obviously I guess it's I don't know, is it a smaller company? I don't know. They seem to be reasonably big, but I guess compared to Stripe, anything's small, right? There does seem bits which they're finished, but they don't feel fully fleshed out. Yeah, it feels like there's still lots of things they're doing they haven't done yet, and there's bits which is like, this doesn't seem clear. And obviously there's a lack of scale of support in terms of ecosystem. So like, for instance, there's no library for Elixir for doing it, but I mean, it's simple enough, right? I mean, it's me sending a payload to get some JavaScript to do something, and it's receiving a webhook that I have to verify the signature with just usual crypto stuff. So it's simple enough, but also you're kind of on your own with regards to there's the data, build a subscription service around it. So it's fine. I mean, again, the convenience of once it's done, I won't have to think about it, right? So, and even if I was doing this with Stripe, I'd still have the same kind of things with regards to messaging in the billing section, and how do you cancel, and how do you, so it's all got to be there, and this is slightly easier, I guess. So yeah, it's fine. Yeah, no real annoyances, just got to work through it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it, and I think I'll follow you in trying out Paddle. It's gonna save a lot of headaches with taxes and all that stuff.
They also have a metered option as well, I believe. I didn't look into it because I'm not doing it, but if you're doing like number of minutes or something like that, I believe you can do that. So if I was to move to like per seat seating, I think I can probably implement it using that as well, but I'm not going to do that again for the first version. I'm just going to go with a flat I think I'm going to do like 2 or 3 levels, like up to 10 members, up to 20, and then unlimited, or up to a few hundred or something, just to make it clear there's different levels, and then I can get a feeling for whether I'm in the right ballpark, just to kind of get some idea of how people use it.
Right.
Again, going for a per seat billing at this stage feels like adding more complications than I need. So the other big thing is I've been doing the 500 Startups Academy thing, Founder Academy thing. So that's
nice. How's that going?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. There's 2 kind of main components to it. So it's a 4-week course thing, and there's 50 companies. Like half of them are in Japan, the other half are dotted around the world, quite a lot around Asia, a few in Europe. And so there's a week like video course on a particular topic. And then at the end of that week, they have effectively a networking session and an AMA with somebody either that was teaching the course, the video course, or they're related to that. They also work in that field. So for instance, this week's was like SEO, last week's was sales and marketing, the previous week was like growth experiments and metrics, and how to add like what metrics to think about and how to measure them and stuff.
Nice.
So they've all been the SEO one probably is a little bit, I guess it's still kind of relevant, but I'm not in a position to do much with that right now, apart from, get my first version of a landing page up, a newer version of my landing page up, and then start to think about how I can work with that to grow content and things to improve the SEO of both the site and all of the content I want to produce. But the previous week about like both sales in terms of segmenting your potential users and how to target different users and the value of different types of users. So more than anything, I mean, none of it is stuff that you couldn't or haven't already learned about either from reading stuff on the web or reading, all of the startup books that you've probably got, same as me, or just YouTube. I mean, a lot of the same people have done either the same people or other experts on this area have done, you can see YouTube talks about the same kind of topics. So the information is out there. It's nothing radically new, but effectively somebody's sitting you down and saying, spelling it out and then saying, now do some of this. Like, there's exercises going through it, like, working out like your segments of your users and then having an AMA session with someone who is an expert on this and being able, it's like a 90-minute session, basically them going through the audience questions, right? So it's very valuable. It's been really valuable, and just in terms of getting you to do the work which you've probably put off. I mean, even just going through that thing of, well, okay, who are your target segments and what's the value of each one and why are you, what kind of problems are you solving from them and how do you talk to them, and how just looking at this and then saying, okay, well, how do you measure and analyze and optimize for this metric, for this sector, the segment. And so just going through that and actually making you write this down or think about it more than, I kind of know what I'm supposed to do, right, has been incredibly valuable. And it's made me a lot more analytic about, some of the stuff that I was thinking of doing. I'm like, I need to, reassess some of these things. So it's definitely been valuable. I mean, absolutely been valuable. And just some of the AMA sessions, these people are, they either work at 500 as mentors or they're related to the 500 kind of network. Yeah, just sitting with them for 90 minutes on Zoom has been just like, it's like a knowledge bomb. It's been,
nice.
I mean, I guess the thing which has stood out partly for me is that you can kind of see a pattern in almost like the startup factory at work here, right? I mean, I guess it's very American centric, obviously, because the 500 is, and the whole startup as an industry is very America centric, right? But you can almost, through both the course material and the sessions, the AMO sessions themselves, you can almost see the recipe for a startup. As in, it's very clear. It's like if you look at any of the bigger or the more becoming successful startups, so not necessarily the Stripe or the unicorn kind of companies, but companies which are raising 10, 20 million are just in that stage where they're not a real startup, that they've graduated from that we're making a product to, or actually growth stage. And then when you see these courses, you can almost see the recipe that they've followed to get to the point where they are and what they're implementing in order to grow further. It's a very clear, I mean, each case is different, but the pattern is the same, and the information that they're using to create the instructions to get there follows this pattern perfectly, right? And so it's kind of interesting seeing the structure behind it all. So there's definitely, I guess, companies that have gone through 500 or YC or anything, they're going through the same course, right? And they're implementing the same things in a very similar way, just for their their own industry. Yeah, and you can certainly see the patterns appearing.
Well, that's good. That's awesome.
Well, the hope is then is you can reproduce this, right? If it's working for these 10 companies, but those things aren't working for those 20, well, you do the things which are working, right? So you can obviously see these things must work because these are the companies that are becoming successful and raising more money and doing reasonable. So yeah, I guess it's a case of like, okay, take what's the things which are obviously working for them and reproduce some of those tactics, right? So it's been super interesting. So yeah, this week is SEO, and next week is I forgot. So that's next week. I'll think about that next week.
Yeah.
But it seems very it's about fundraising, of course. It's about basically pitching and fundraising and stuff like that. So
is that the last week? Yes. How many weeks is it?
It's 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So definitely interesting. And even if I don't, necessarily go looking for money, just knowing the system and the process and the expectations and what people are doing is just helpful and very interesting, useful to know, right? So
Yeah, for sure. Knowledge is power. So even if you don't go that route, it's always good to know. And yeah, even if you don't get investment in that way, you could channel some of that knowledge in your own way to grow your company at the pace that you want to grow
right,
it. It
exactly.
doesn't have to be all VC and all that
Right,
traditional
exactly. I
stuff.
mean, that's certainly an option, and
Hmm.
it's never say never, right?
Yep.
There's big advantages to doing that, depending on what the type of company you want to grow, right? So but again, just knowing, having this kind of knowledge dump on you is really valuable. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm really enjoying it, and it's definitely been made me think a lot about some of the strategies or lack of strategies that I've been doing, and just how you can almost, obviously it's not that simple, but you can almost be more strategic about what and how and who you are talking. So, I mean, I guess this is a common problem with, indie makers in general, is we build what interests us or what we see a small niche for, rather than the big picture of, like, looking at where exactly the valuable markets are. So, but again, you don't have to necessarily do exactly the same, but just keeping these things in mind and using the things which are relevant to what you're doing is incredibly
Right.
powerful. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hopefully you sounds like you're getting a lot of out of this. What is it called? Course? It's a
yeah,
course,
it's
right?
is
Yeah.
it 500 Founders Academy, 500 in Kobe. So yeah, Kobe
Hmm.
City are basically supporting it. So there's a bunch of networking and mentoring that they are arranging, as well as like a together with so it's a kind of joint venture between 500 and Kobe. So Kobe
Nice,
City. So
nice.
I now have an excuse to go to Kobe City. I've never been to that area.
Oh, there you
So
go.
yeah, exactly. Well, that looks like they have some fantastic. So similar to my city, Fukuoka, they are running with the goal to encourage startups and new.
Mm.
They have a startup visa system, and the city like encourages and supports small businesses in various ways. Like, they provide this startup hub. So they've got, in the same way we've got an old elementary school that they've revamped, and it's now a startup center. I have like a co-working space there and things. They have
Hmm.
subsidized offices. Kobe doing the same, but they've got a brand new fancy building. So we've got like a cool old historic building. They've got a brand new fancy office. So you can see a different tactic here. But I
Yeah.
mean, they also help you if you're a foreigner and want to start a company in Japan, start a startup. Then they help arrange. You can get a visa to start a company here, even if you don't have like a working visa. There's certain things that you can do to achieve that. So both Shibuya City in Tokyo, Kobe, and Fukuoka are all running these schemes. So it's, Japan's got a long way to go in terms of entrepreneurship in digital space, but they're trying. I mean, it's been really good for me, just in terms of helping arrange me, contacts within the city, mentorships, things like the co-working space, and just there's a lot that they try and do to encourage and to support small businesses. So yeah, it's a nice thing to have. It's a good system.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Well, good luck with the rest of the course. And you're gonna, it's like I said, sounds like you're getting a lot of value out of it. And yeah, just
It's been interesting that
take notes and put
yeah,
it to
yeah,
practice.
exactly. It's been interesting also seeing just the variety of companies, because it's a founders academy. They're also 500 are also running a thing with Aichi City, which is growth to Japan. So if you've got a successful product or company abroad, they're basically running a similar kind of course but different target at basically bringing your company to Japan and how to set up here, how to grow, and how to find your audience here. As opposed to starting a company, you're not in the founding stage, you're in the growth stage. So that's
Mm,
a much smaller cohort. It's like 10 companies, whereas ours is
okay.
50. And so it's, obviously different target. It's slightly longer. It's got like, obviously a very different focus. Yeah, so they seem to be running a few of these things. And I think they said they plan to run this Founders Academy like twice a year or something. And the growth one, I think they're doing once a year or something. So yeah, it's all super interesting, and
That's
it's just a
awesome.
great opportunity to be just acquire knowledge.
Yeah,
Just got to
yeah.
put it into practice now, which is easier said than done.
And this was free, right?
Mm,
This,
hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah.
That's nice.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, it also sets you up in terms of just networking for, if I ever decided to try and join another accelerator, there's just so many people I've spoke to on there that, the network is expanding, right? And just it's super useful to have these contacts, and just
Yeah,
super interesting.
cool. Very cool.
Just got to put it into practice now.
Yeah. So where are you at in terms of the product and launching? I know you're integrating Paddle, so you're
Yeah.
getting ready for opening it up for billing and
Yeah.
stuff. What are your plans as far as opening it up to the public,
Yeah.
open the gates, or
Yeah, as I said, there's no reason. I mean, the product is. This is why I was kind of giving you crap, because
yeah.
it's there's a million things that are currently I see as glaring problems with it, right? But at the same time, I also have people using it daily and they're finding it useful.
Hmm.
So amongst those beta testers, it's like, well, if they're finding it useful, then other people probably will too, right?
Hmm.
So I kind of have to get to the point where I stop trying to fiddle with it. And a lot of the things I want to do now are bigger things. There's lots of smaller things that I can improve, but
Hmm.
there's just bigger feature sets that I want to work on. And if I start working on those now, I'll never launch, right? So it's like, okay, I've got
Hmm.
to draw a line in the sand with it's like it's useful to people right now, so therefore launch. And I'll go in with
Hmm.
a pretty straightforward pricing system. So it's like just it's this, and it's you can use it for 10.
Right.
I say I'm thinking of 10, 20, or 10, 30, and hundreds or something like that, just to make it an affordable and easy kind of price point, almost like a no real excuse not to, if you find it useful, not to pay if you find it useful, right?
Right.
Again, just to help understand the users, how the product fits, and what to focus on next, things like that. So as I said, I'm forcing myself to get it at the end of the month. Whether we'll hit that, I don't know, but as close to that as possible. And then
Okay.
just so I'm going to have either a 2 week or I think a 2 week free sign up without a credit card, and then hit the paywall. I thought about doing the credit card first, so that's something Paddle supports as well. Is you can enable a trial period within Paddle. So
Okay.
I can basically say like 14-day trial, but that way they have to enter the credit card first, and then on day 15 they get billed. But so the other way is you handle the trial, and then after 14 days I say you need to pay, and I send them to Paddle for billing. um,
Hmm.
I can understand both. Obviously, the internet wisdom, conventional wisdom, is you take credit card up front. If you look at anybody on like Mega Maker or MicroConf, will probably swear by taking credit card data up front and doing the trial, and then auto bill after 2 weeks unless they
Hmm.
cancel. I feel that I don't know. As somebody, as a user, I hate that. And then I can completely understand the reasons for doing it, and it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. But at the same time, if I can't try out a product without entering a credit card, I get kind of, unless it's some, I mean, Transistor, I guess, is the one which was like I know exactly what that does. And if you need it,
Hmm.
you pay for it. Whereas it
Hmm.
feels like this is almost like let me understand the product and then let me decide if
Hmm.
I'm going to pay
Hmm.
for it or not. So
Yeah, I can see that reasoning. That makes sense. It depends on the product as well, because yeah, like you said, if it's something that people already know what it is and they know what to expect,
right.
yeah, that I can see how just require the credit card and don't charge it until the trial period ends. But in your case, because the user is going to want to explore the product and kind
Mm-hmm.
of get to know it. Yeah, I think that's the right approach, even though yeah, the advice out there is always don't
Yeah.
uh, give it away without
Right.
requiring the credit card.
Yeah. I mean, you
But
have the same dilemma, right? Especially
yeah,
since running, if someone does a call, it costs you money, right? For me, an
yeah,
additional 10 users is a bit of server load, right? It's nothing.
yeah,
Whereas for you, it actually costs you money to have a free user, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess you
which
have.
is one of the reasons I've been in this private beta mode
Mm.
for a while. It's a little too long for my liking.
Yeah.
I don't want it to go on forever, but that's one of the reasons. There's a cost to running the system, and I want to keep it as controlled as possible to iron out all the kinks. And it's that fine line between spending money on running the system and allowing the user to test it,
Right.
and
Yeah.
for free, because they
Mhm.
I feel the same way. From the user point of view, I don't like when I have to put
Yeah.
a credit card in, just
I
to
can
try the
understand the
product.
reasoning completely, and
Yeah.
again, in certain situations, it kind of makes sense. So it's like, well, I know what this is, and I need this thing, so I'm going to pay for it. But some kind of free trial, just let me really get a feel for it before I commit to this in any way, even
Yeah.
if it's a free commitment. If just entering a credit card feels like I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, yeah. So how are you going to handle the transition from
Mm.
end of trial
This
to charging?
this is a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the easiest is literally to so I know who created the account, as in there's an account owner, there's a workspace owner, and then there's team members. Any of those can be admin, but there's one person who is the owner and always an admin.
Hmm.
And so if I hit the paywall, the easiest thing I'm going to do is basically everybody else gets a message saying you need to tell your account owner that you need to pay, and then the owner basically goes to a page that says choose a
Hmm.
billing method. That's the easiest way. I'm not sure if it's the best way. It would be nice if people don't lose access to their data. So
Right.
obviously so the other way would be you can't check in or something, right? So you
Hmm.
can't publish a check-in. So that would be another way of people can log in and they can still see all the things they've done, but they can't publish anything new.
So it's effectively read only at that
Read-only mode,
point.
right? It goes into
Hmm.
read-only mode. So that would probably be the better version. It's just a bit more work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because you
um,
have to touch a lot of points in the code base to make that happen, right?
yeah,
Because every part of the app where they can add something, you would have to
exactly.
put some
Do I
conditionals and
allow stop comments as well? Do I stop like reactions? Do I stop them editing things? So right now you can publish new, you can edit an old one, you can add comments, you can react to things, and yeah. So each one of those things, it's like, well, it'd have to go through an additional check, and I'm like, it
yeah,
seems like a lot of work. So
yeah, it is.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's probably what I'll do is that. And again, I might change that at a later date, but it's the easiest thing to get me to launch, right? A
Yeah.
lot of these things, there's a
It's
there's a trade-off between the amount of work to get it to work and is it the best solution? Maybe not, but I'll have to revisit that later.
As we're talking about this, I'm thinking here, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about it. And I don't know if you go in that route, right? You don't require the credit card. They
Mm.
go through the trial period. And when that ends, it's almost like you have to reel them back in
Mm.
and have them enter that credit card.
Yes.
Whereas if you do that beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
now you have it. And now at the end of the trial period, well, before the end of the trial, the way that I would approach it is you send a message, right? Because you
Mm.
don't want to surprise them with
Right.
the credit card
Paddle does
charge.
this automatically, I believe. I
Okay.
think I have to check,
It
but yeah, you
sh-
could just send them a message. Yeah,
they
just say
should.
you're
Yeah.
about to be billed for this.
Yeah. So your trial period
Mm.
ended and you're
Mhm.
about this
Mm.
amount is going to be charged on next date or whatever. So now it's less
It's less friction at that point, right?
friction
Mm.
because you've already got the credit card.
Mm.
You'd have to reel them back in and have them go to a form where they're gonna punch in their credit card.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I know I've struggled with this a lot because again the problem as well is having a free trial period is that you end up with a lot of churned accounts. Like
Hmm.
it's easy to sign up for anything, especially including even bots and stuff. And
Hmm.
I want to minimize the barrier to signing up, but at the same point, then if so, you open up the potential for abuse, right? Because
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like
And that's the one thing about requiring the credit card, that it helps
Mhm.
you weed out those who are not
Yeah,
serious about
yeah,
it, those who are really more serious about trying your product and they're
right,
really curious. They're willing to put the credit card in.
yeah.
And I honestly, now that I think about it, I do feel like that, where
Hmm.
if I have to put the credit card in, I kind of don't like it. But if it's a product that I really want to check out and that I'm
Hmm.
curious about,
Hmm.
I don't mind so much.
Hmm.
I know that I'm gonna get especially if I'm told ahead of time, we won't bill you,
Yeah.
and we'll let you know before we
So
charge your card.
another thing to consider is that there's a potential for this as a for a something that a team might try without getting their managers buy-in first. So, for instance,
Hmm.
we would like to try this tool. We try it, and then we tell our boss, hey,
Ah,
"This is
that's a good
useful
point.
for us.
Yeah,
Can you pay for this?" So, at the
that's an
moment,
excellent
I
point.
can transfer the ownership of the workspace to my boss. He pays. It's done. The other thing to consider as well is in Japan, staff generally don't have credit cards. You don't have an expense card. Now, every company I've ever worked for in the UK and the US is like, you work here, here's a card, and it's expensed, and just make sure you submit your receipts, right? But in Japan, generally that doesn't happen. Staff don't get like personal credit cards. So,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, it's also a potential problem that staff can't even get stuff signed. Like a manager, she might not be able to get sign off for a product. It's got to go to her manager's manager, and then that person will want an invoice, and they'll want to pay with they have a system here called PayEasy, which is like a bank transfer system that is done at an ATM. And so there's a whole separate billing system, because in general credit cards are just not that common at companies, especially at small companies. So then I've got the question is, well, in that case, maybe I just split it. So Japan, you don't, and I'm like, oh god,
No,
no.
no,
Which
no,
I
but
did
that
think about for a little while, and I'm like, do I do
no.
that?
No, but that's an excellent point because of the nature, again, the nature of your product. You have it's more for teams, right?
Mm,
More team oriented. So you have to think about that, and that's an excellent point.
yeah,
You want to remove that friction because you want people to try it out,
right.
and then they can go to their boss and say, "Hey, we love this thing, and can we get it?"
Yes.
Yeah,
I know this has been. I mean, same as the pricing. It's been something I've been, like going around in my head. I've been back and forth on it 100 times. Just it's like, can I really, like, especially as you said, if it's a small team and yeah, we want to try it out, then if we like it, then we tell our boss that we should use this is useful for
yeah,
us as a team, right? And if they've got to put in their own personal credit card to do that, then it's possibly not going to happen. There's a
yeah,
more of a
yeah.
chance that's not going to happen, right? I mean, the other thing as well is I could just literally, to tackle abuse is like 14 days. How long do I keep an account for? If somebody, I mean, I've done this with services. I sign up for the trial thinking like, yeah, I might need it. And then 14 days comes and you go, I'm not ready to pay for it yet. And then,
Hmm.
like 3 months later, I'm thinking, right, I need to use that thing. And I go back and I expect the account to still be there, right?
Yeah,
If it's
yeah.
not, I'd be like, what? Or the other thing is I get emails from services and it's like, you haven't used this Boofle account in 3 years. And I'm like, what the hell is that? We're going to delete your account. And I'm like, fine, because I don't know what the hell this is.
Didn't didn't even remember that
Exactly.
when I created that.
There's a slight complete sidetrack, but a slight annoyance in emails is when a startup, because it's always startups, like generally you know the bigger companies. If Stripe
Yeah,
emails you, you know what Stripe is, right? But if it's
yeah,
some company that emails you and says, oh, we noticed you haven't used such a thing, we've added a new feature to do this, I'm like, I have no idea what your service is, and you're talking about this as if I do. I tried your product a year ago for an hour if you're lucky, and then they, rather than kind of, it would just take a paragraph at the top of the email saying, you know our thingy, product X is a thing which, time tracking. You go, oh right, oh it's a thing, right? But
yeah,
you'd be surprised how few companies do that.
yeah.
That's always a massive annoyance.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually need to do that because I'm going to be sending an email out pretty soon about with an update about the
Well, I need to
product.
do the same thing, right? Yeah, I've got an email list of a bunch of people. I need to tell them it's released, and I
Yeah,
give it.
and I haven't sent an email in forever.
Yeah.
I the only one time I sent an email to some of the people that I was onboarding, and it's been months. I need to get better at
So
that.
make sure you put a paragraph at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I need to get better at communicating. As we're talking about this, it reminds me of something I wanted to talk to you about, but I think we're gonna have to leave it for next time.
Ooh, exciting.
So we'll have another
Okay.
topic to talk, and it has to do with. Wait, what was it again?
You've
As you
already
were
forgotten.
talking,
Chances of remembering it in 2 weeks are zero.
I, I know, right? I need to add it to my notes
You
for
do.
next time. It has to do with Oh, yes, retention time of recordings. I need to figure out what I'm going to do about the whole thing of storing files,
Again,
recordings.
that's not free.
And if I don't introduce some kind of retention period after which files get purged, then it just keeps piling up and increasing cost.
Mhm.
So I think I have to introduce some kind of this concept of retention period.
Mhm.
And for some subscription plans, it would be less. Or, the cheaper ones would have less retention period. And if you want more, a year or
Mhm.
whatever, a subscription plan costs more.
Again, your billing is slightly complicated just because, well, I mean, there's so many levers you can pull on your billing process, right? It's like,
Mhm.
retention, the how many recordings, the size, and things. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a tricky one.
I'm gonna try to keep it simple.
Mm.
Just
Right? Yeah, yeah, you have
really,
to.
really base it on minutes,
Right.
right? It's
Mm.
just packaged
Mhm.
minutes
Mm.
and retention period.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then
That
and
makes
that's
sense.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but maybe we can talk about it
Yeah,
in more
let's talk about
detail
that.
next
It'd be
time.
good. I want to have a think about this as well. So it'd be
Yeah,
good to come with some opinions
yeah.
because I never have any of those.
All right, cool. Sounds
Awesome.
good. All right, so this is probably a good point to wrap it up.
Yep,
All right, it's been a minute.
it
I don't
has.
know. I think we might have skipped a
We
week or
did.
something,
I know.
but
It's a confusing period of time. So weeks make no sense anymore.
but we're back.
We're back.
And yeah, do this again in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
And until then, have a great one, and I'll talk to you then.
Cheers.